Right. Okay, we're live. Good morning, good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you live from beautiful Southwest Georgia, and I'm here with my good friends Catherine and Donna and Danielle, Dan Smith, Dan Sissick, and Christina Irving. And we are happy to be hanging out with you this morning. We get together every single week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind so that we can discuss personal development books and so we can all gain insights and grow and learn together. So this week we're going to be talking about the book What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. Okay, Dan just said that I'm kind of garbled. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. Does somebody else want to jump out and welcome folks to the page and just kind of, if I'm kind of choppy, it may be better if somebody else talks for a bit. You want to jump out? You know what? Just everybody go ahead and introduce themselves. Let's start with that, okay? All right, go from there.
Good morning, everybody. This is Danielle DeLyons. I am now saying hello from Brawley, California, about 2.5 hours from where I used to live, and excited to finally get back on these wonderful mastermind calls that we have every Saturday morning and be here with all my good friends, and look forward to your comments and sharing our thoughts today with you.
Good morning, everybody. Danielle, it's good to have you back. Nice to see your smiling face. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Smith, come from Boise, Idaho. Got a beautiful day shaping up here, and great day to be alive. And welcome everybody to the call. Looking forward to the discussion today.
Dan Sissick here, and I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I just recently was asked to join these guys over the last couple of weeks, so I'm looking forward to sharing my views and thoughts on this. Love following you guys all and love what you guys share, so talk to you guys in a little bit.
Hello, I'm Catherine Clement, and I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, and looking forward to the discussion today. It's a beautiful day here, and we're going to have a super moon party tonight, so I'm excited about that, and excited to hear the discussion today. We had a really good pre-mastermind discussion, and I'm looking forward to continuing that. Thank you for coming.
Hey everyone, Christina Irving here. I live in Northeast Tennessee. It's good to be back. I've had to miss a couple weeks, so I'm glad to be back. Let's get this discussion going, y'all.
Good morning, Raleigh, North Carolina. Here it's raining. Good to see everybody. Look forward to the discussion.
Was that everybody? Okay, guys, sorry about that. And that was Donna from Raleigh, North Carolina. You forgot to say your name, Donna. Glad to have you guys on this morning. Hopefully we are going to have a great discussion. I know in the pre-mastermind it was, everybody had some great stuff to share. This week we're talking about our attitudes and how you can change your attitude with positive self-talk. Now, one thing I wanted to do is just read a little section in here, and but if I'm choppy, would somebody else like to read this? How am I sounding? Sounding okay now? Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read. Just jump out if I start breaking up too much. Okay, so in this book, we're on chapter 17 about changing attitudes, and I just wanted to read this section. It says that attitudes create the biggest part of the picture we see of ourselves. They are the filters through which we view everything in our sight. Our attitudes are our dispositions. They are our state of mind we live in. Our attitudes express themselves through our moods, our temperament, our willingness, and our hesitations. Our attitudes propel us forward towards our victories or bog us down in defeat. We and our attitudes are inextricably combined. We are our attitudes, and our attitudes are us. I wanted to just read those most important things because whether we realize it or not, your attitude towards everything in your life is what affects everything in your life. And so today we're going to kind of jump into this discussion and share a little bit of our own experiences of how attitudes have affected us, and how how we're working to change our attitudes to make things better and that sort of thing. But before we get going, let me just kind of jump over here and welcome everybody who's hanging out with us. And by the way, if you want to jump in on the conversation, you just need to go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That will take you to the main page for our event, where you can jump in and add your thoughts in the conversation. So welcome, Julia. Welcome, Sandy Johnson. It's good to see you again. I hope that everything went well with your kids and in their sporting events. I know you were doing that for a while. That's awesome. And let's see who else is hanging out with us. Okay, everybody here on the panel. So if you're hanging out, comment on the page. Let us know you're out there, and that we can jump in the conversation as well. Okay, so let's start this with, let's just start with, what was your biggest takeaway from this chapter? And we can kind of go from there, and then we can share our experiences and whatnot. Who wants to jump out first?
I'll go ahead and jump. One of the big things that I really loved about this particular chapter was how we do it because we were kind of programmed the same way from our parents, and we say things like, you have a really bad attitude and you need to change it. And I have found myself doing, I have 5 kids, so I'm on number 5 teenager who's 16 right now. And boy, that one's an easy one to come out of our mouths as a parent at certain ages with our kids. And yet it's really it's the wrong approach, and it really helped me to see, I think, that I needed to change the wording, because it helps you reflect back on yourself and how you already beat yourself up enough and know you have issues. We all know. It's just like with my kids. I know, like, my 16-year-old son knows that he's doing things that I do not approve of, or whatever the situation. Yet by my reinforcing the negative part of that, instead of finding an effective way to positively address what I want to see change, I'm actually creating more of the same problem. So I thought that was a very impactful part of the chapter.
Okay, I guess I'll jump out. Oh, there he is. I knew Dan was trying to come out.
My computer's like freezing up or something. I don't know what's going on here, but yeah, one of the things that stood out to me in this chapter was that he said that you can't change somebody else's attitude, and just like what Danielle, what you was talking about is, that I got 2 kids. My son's in his mid-30s now, and my daughter's almost 30, but yeah, that was one of my great things, is you need to change your attitude, and, all that really accomplishes is creating a worse attitude, but not really having the tools to know how to deal with that. It kind of it's self-perpetuating, what our parents do to us and what we do to our children, and God help their children. So anyways, I had a really profound thought, but I can't remember what it is. So anyway, I'll let somebody else talk.
Hi, Jason. Glad you could join us, and glad you made it back. Christina, I saw you drop off and come back on, so glad you made it. This chapter, it summed it up with attitudes everything. It doesn't matter what situation you're in. It's your perception of the situation that makes it either tolerable or non-tolerable to you. And as hard as it sounds, no matter what situation you're in, you do have the choice to decide how you're going to look at that. You can look at it in the very worst way, like we had in our pre-mastermind discussion. Samantha, you shared some things with us going on with you. Thank you so much. And and you said you realized you were looking at it from the worst possible way. you know, you were looking at the worst case scenarios, and that's what we tend to do when we get into some of these frustrating situations, is we think that, you know, for me the pain is never going to end, or, you know, for someone struggling with learning skills, that they're just never going to learn this stuff, you know, that they're not good at it or whatever. So and it's those moments, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, so many of us have been doing this sort of self-development work for years. We have the tools, we know what to do. It's just a matter of, in the moment, when everything feels like it's crashing down, are we strong enough to say, no, I'm not going to look at it that way. I'm going to use these tools. I'm going to say these affirmations. Even if you're, you know, completely losing it, you can still redirect your mind onto your affirmations, but you need to have them there in some form, written or video or audio or something, so that they're easy to just switch into, or if you can train your mind to just immediately switch into your self-talk affirmations. Great chapter. I think the best so far.
Yeah, Catherine, I completely agree with you. I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just gonna jump out and say, tag along with Christine. Yeah, no. I'm sorry, I forgot who I was listening to. That I think a lot of it also plays in with feelings, how we're feeling in that moment. You know, the way we feel and how it kind of can overtake us, even though we know up here that, you know, we know the difference and we understand the difference, but when we get in the heat of the feelings or what's going on around us, we forget that we have that conscious choice to change that and to, you know, go from there. Um, like, I'm personally right now going through some of my own little things going on and trying to, you know, and I get caught up in the emotion of it, and I had to stop a little bit and say, look, no, I have the choice, and the feelings are overriding my conscious thoughts and attitude for what I want. So that's just what I wanted to throw out there.
I was just going to say I completely agree with Catherine. As a matter of fact, I feel like it's one of the things that's really important to understand, is that we all have choice, right? And sometimes some people are, a lot of it not only is about your choice and your perception, but literally, if you've been someone who's been really grounded or rooted in negativity or victimhood mindset, or fight or flight mindset, scarcity mindset, fear mindset. If you've been a person rooted in that, then a lot of times how you're going to respond will come from that, versus even trying to perceive a situation in a different way, right? So a lot of times it's important to remember people have choice, and perception does play a point in that, and not to own what's not yours to own, I guess, is what I really want to point out.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to jump out here real quick. I'm sorry, I just woke up about 30 minutes ago, but I just I wanted to say, yeah, that's I totally agree with you, Christine, and also Dan. I mean, you guys hit on a very important part of it, and it's our feelings and our reactions to what's going on around us. I mean, that's what this is, you know, giving us the tools, by giving us new information to reprogram what our reactions will be, what our internal reactions will be. You know, I was in a a little bit of a conflict the other evening with someone who we just kind of butted heads a little bit. It's a good friend of mine, and we and I had, you know, I had that feeling, that emotion come over me, that, oh no, I'm in a conflict, now what, you know, now. But I really feel that because of because I know now a lot more about, you know, the different outcomes that I have the power to create, you know, and being able to step in my power, because I have new programming, I can see it a little bit differently. I can have that perspective, you know, and that allows me to kind of stand a little more firm, not be aggressive, but sit there and listen, and then think about what, you know, where should I go with this? Maybe take a moment and say, let me let me get back to you or whatever it might be, but to address it in a more calmly and understand that my perception isn't the same as the other person's perception, because now I realize that, like Christine said, our fight or flight impulses sometimes come up, and our reactions can sometimes be based on our past reactions, the way we reacted, and when we didn't know that there were other ways to see things. So this is really great to be able to have this, have new programming, be able to program it ourselves, rather than just having our environment do that for us. So it's like totally gives us control, and I experienced that the other day. So I just want to jump out there really quick. So great to be here and great to see everybody this morning. Hope everyone's having a great week. So.
Never know who's going to jump out or who wants to jump out next. Go ahead, Danielle. I see are you unmuted? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of tie that into everybody's thoughts, and one of the first areas also that it talked about in the chapter where it was talking about in business, and I know most of us on here are in some form of a business of networking or something very similar, and how there's always a new incentive program, and I kind of chuckled to myself when I was reading this, because there is, and it's something we always as leaders are being encouraged to put incentives out there to get our team motivated to do something during different times of the year, because it slows down and etc. But when it really comes down to it, 98% choose not to, and they go right back to those old behaviors, and only about 2% are really truthfully mindset, attitude, the right direction. You don't have to give them an incentive. You don't have to kind of manipulate them for a short period of time to do something that they want to do. And it's all about attitude. And so I really appreciated the way in which he described it's you can show an outward attitude by doing a behavior, but that doesn't mean that internally you've really taken it to heart and decided that it'll be different. And one of the things I want to applaud everybody on here, I know some of us, including myself, have had to miss off and on over the last couple of months, but we've all got a really great attitude because we've decided to, it's an inside thing too, that we'll sacrifice an hour plus of our time to be on these calls on a Saturday morning where other people are sleeping in or going out to breakfast or doing other things with their families. We spend our time here because of the value it brings us and others. So again, it goes back to what are your motivations to make a change in your attitude or motivate other people.
That's such a great point, Danielle, and because it's all about our attitudes of what it is that we hope to accomplish. And if you've got a goal that you want to grow a big team in your business or grow your business in some way, or I don't know, even something as simple as just making a blog, whatever it is. If you don't have the right attitude, you're never going to get it done, right? And so if you are sitting there going, oh, I'd rather watch TV, or I'd rather go out to breakfast, or I'd rather go, sit and play Candy Crush on my phone, whatever. That's the wrong attitude to have if you want to accomplish something. So I think that was a great point, Danielle. Who else wants to jump out?
Last week after everybody got off. Can you hear me? I think everybody. I think I'm unmuted. I'm going to go ahead and talk. Last week, after most people got off the Hangout, there were several of us that stayed on and talked for almost a half an hour. And one of the things we was talking about is something earlier in the book is internal motivation versus external motivation, and going to the big sales conventions and you got the speakers up there and everybody gets really revved up and excited and I'm going to go home. I'm going to do this thing, and then you get home and Monday morning rolls around, the alarm clock goes off, it's early, you're dragging butt because, you've just been at a big meeting all weekend long and whatever. And then all of a sudden that reality snaps back, and that's external motivation. And that's somebody, holding a stick out in front of you, with a carrot out in front of you, giving you that external motivation that, hey, if you do this, you can have this, and trying to motivate you, the carrot and the stick. I don't know how else to put it, and that versus the internal motivation that comes from you having a deep why of something that you want, a dream that you have that is so deep, that is so personal, so real to you, that like if you don't have this, your life will never be complete. You've got to do it because you're driven from the inside, from just that deep desire that you have to have some accomplishment, to have some recognition, to have some physical item. It doesn't matter what your why is, what your dream is. A dream is something that's seen only in the mind and is felt only in the heart. It doesn't have to make sense. That's why they call it a dream. It's a dream that means something to you. And that deep, gnawing dream that's internal, if you don't have that, then you're probably going to fail. And you have to develop that dream. It takes time. It takes massaging it and writing it on paper and refining it and picturing it in your mind and using the affirmations. And that's where the internal motivation comes from, the drive, the deep drive that drives you to go do and to accomplish the things that you want to have. So that's getting up early, an hour earlier, and reading a book. Like I can't remember who said it, but when everybody else is watching TV or going to bed early, it's staying up another hour and reading a book and improving your mind and putting the good information in there. It's listening to an audio as you drive in your automobile, and turning off the radio, and it's just doing things, a little tweaks that most people won't do, and then sit around and complain while they're not successful. And it's the little things that we do on a daily basis that add up, and they add up over time. So there's a lot of people. I'll turn to somebody else.
Let's talk about some different situations that where we can use our self-talk or positive self-talk to change our attitude about something. Of course, we had some great things talked about in the pre-discussion, but let's start with something just really small, okay? For example, I had a bad attitude about cloudy days for a long time. I know it sounds really just simple, right? But every day I'd wake up and it was cloudy, I'd be like, oh, I'm so depressed. I'm not happy. I'm not going to be able to get anything done. I'm just, I can't go outside. So these are all these self-talk things that I was saying in my mind, right? And when we started doing this work, I started to realize that I could change my feelings about cloudy days by just changing the words that were coming out of my mouth. And so instead of saying, oh, I hate cloudy days, I would say, oh, it's so nice out and bright, and even though, there's no sun, I can still go outside, it's not raining, I would start saying things like that. And so for something just really simple, everybody kind of think of something simple in their lives that maybe you can change one or two things about the way that you're saying it, and maybe you can change change your attitude about it, right? Because now I'm not depressed on cloudy days. I'm like, yay, it's not raining. I don't know. What do you guys think? What's something simple that we can change? And then we'll get into some deeper stuff.
Well, about 6 months ago, I did a really drastic diet change, not for health reasons. I had some things I needed to change. And at first I was, as most people would be, I guess, I was missing things that I was looking at it from what I couldn't have anymore, because my menu went from like way out here to like this, and I was like looking at all this out here that I couldn't have. So then I realized, oh, but I can have this, and this is very delicious, and actually taking all these other foods out of my menu sort of sharpened my taste buds, so those few things that I could have became even more delicious. So I really started focusing on what I could have and how delicious and how healthy it was for me, rather than, always saying, oh, I wish I could have that or whatever. So that's a simple one.
Well, I'll jump out. As Samantha knows, last weekend and a couple other people on here, I got to attend a Millionaire Mind exercise intensive, whatever you want to call it, that Tia Harv Eckert puts on in different places throughout the country. And there were a couple exercises that were, I think it's part attitude adjustment, where he had us do a thing with our little, and I'm still wearing it, with our bracelet, where we pull it out, when we start, negative things or stuff, changing that to where it gets into our attitude too, where we pull this out and kind of snap it to remind ourselves that we can change. And he talked about, going from little, you can do it a little bit, where you can only do a little bit and might not do much help, but the bigger and the more you stretch it out and feel the pain and remind yourself of the pain. And like you kind of said, you were focusing on the pain of not having everything out here rather than focusing on what the good things could do for you and how it's going to change and help you for your body and make your body better. I think that was a great analogy, and I haven't taken this off, and they told us to leave it on for 30 or 90 days. I plan on leaving it on forever and using it every time I get like that, because it just stood out to me so strongly how we slip so easily back into those things, that all it takes is something that you can cognitively use to make that change and do that and speak back to yourself to make that change.
I was a lot like you, Samantha. I've talked about this before, but every year in Boise we have what's called a temperature inversion. We have a ski resort that's in the mountains. Idaho is desert right up to the mountains, and but we have some really nice valleys here that runs all the way through the state. But we have a lot of desert. We have a lot of mountains, and so there's a ski resort that's only a 45-minute drive from Boise, and the temperature inversion, it traps cold air in the valley, and it can be beautiful sunny day up at the ski resort. It can be 40 degrees up there and be 20 degrees here in the valley, and it's depressing. You just feel like somebody just rained on your parade, or and then being in the painting business, I hated rain. I hated snow. I hated winter. Because it cut so deeply into my business, and so my business was seasonal, but I needed to make a living year round, and so really, about somewhere around the end of October, 1st of November, every year I would just get depressed. I couldn't understand, God, why do I feel so awful, and it took me years, and then I started hearing these things about people who required sunlight. And finally I figured out, hey, I'm one of those people. I do require a certain amount of sunlight every day, and so I just absolutely hated the rain. I hated winter, and it was just depressing every year. But since I'm not painting houses anymore, I don't mind the winter. I don't mind the rain. It really doesn't make any difference if I can stay inside. I don't hate it anymore the way that I did, and really I haven't struggled with the depression that I struggled with for a lot of years, just because I knew that every year my income was going to be cut drastically, just because of the weather, just because of the season that it was. So anyways, yeah, just changing my attitude towards the season that it was, whether rain was falling out of the sky or not, that it didn't make any difference to me anymore, because the earth needs it anyway, and we need the rain, we need the snow. So I'll let somebody else talk.
I think that's a good point, Dan, about refocusing on the positives of what that weather brings. Like the world needs the rain, needs the snow, right? And it's the same thing with a cloudy day. We need to have those cloudy days sometimes too, right? But okay, so let's jump into a little bit deeper topics. We've all kind of shared something in the pre-mastermind discussion, and so I want you to jump out and Danielle, why don't you go first and talk about your family situation? You mentioned something about your daughter moving back in with you. Share us with a little bit about that and how you're working with that.
Yeah, we have to adjust to changes all the time and personalities, and I'll go a little deeper than that because my life dramatically changed in the last couple of months, and before I had roommates, and so my attitude every morning and every day was like, oh, I have to deal with them again. I'm going to walk out into the kitchen and the kitchen's going to be dirty, and I'm very major OCD clean, and the bathroom's going to be messy, and I'm going to have to deal with that. And so I'd spin off this whole story in my mind about all the things I don't care for, and I actually have to close my bedroom door because I have the son in the other room already going, yeah, Mom, because he was part of that situation at the time. And so interestingly enough, I'm going to tie this into how the law of attraction works, because I kept attracting it, and it just kept compounding where it just became this enormous heavy burden, and I think that a lot of that was then spinning into my health, and it was affecting me sleeping, and so now I'm finally getting adjusted this past week because it has other effects on us, and I would have to tell myself I am responsible for how I'm letting myself see things and how I'm letting other people affect me. So that could be external people outside of your circle, and it could be your own family, and I'm even doing that now, going into what you were asking, Samantha, with how I see how I am with my own children. And it's especially challenging as they become adults and they want to be treated differently than you've treated them before, or if you haven't lived with them and they come stay with you again, and they've changed as well, and your attitudes about how you're going to handle it. And it's not easy sometimes, so you have to, I think for me is that I'm in control of my own thoughts and my own behaviors at all times, and I choose to find a better way to say things and handle things, because the way I was handling it was flipping out and going the opposite way, and it's not helping it. And so we have to find, and I'm just being transparent. I might be a white girl, but there's a Latina in there, and I have all these little Mexican weapons, and I'm just like, I go crazy. And I don't like that part of myself, so Samantha's cracking up. Because, let's be real. We do silly things with our behaviors based on our attitudes and the way we talk to ourselves. And so you have to stop yourself and look at what you're doing and what am I thinking that's causing this to be the way I'm behaving, and it's an attitude.
Crack me up. You crack me up, Danielle. It amazes me. I hear many people, this is like going way another direction, but that's how my brain works, sorry. It amazes me how many people have judgments against primarily women, but also men who are in abusive situations, and they won't leave. And they say, oh, that's just, why can't they leave? And, that I would never be in something like that. And yet, people are the most self-abusive. I mean, you are your biggest abuser by the thoughts and the attitudes that you carry about certain things. I mean, we treat ourselves worse. Hopefully with work like this we don't, and it gets better. But I mean, primarily people that aren't trying, and even those of us that are doing this work, but imagine the people who aren't, how much they beat up on themselves in a day. I mean, it's frightening, and so people don't take actions. They don't do the work, the daily actions that someone mentioned before. It takes those daily actions. People aren't doing that to correct the self-abusive situation, so I don't see how they can be so judgmental about the other person not leaving. Because you might as well. Some of these things that we say to ourselves is worse than if you could whack yourself in the face, you know, because it affects your heart. And you have to love yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. Yeah, we all come through these challenges, and we're all trying to change them, but we need to be kind to ourselves in the meantime. Be kind as you're changing, you know, and reward yourself and recognize when you do make a change. Celebrate when you catch yourself, like when you have that negative thought and you catch yourself, oh, I said that is amazing. Like celebrate that moment, because that's going to start happening more and more as you know, take these actions and say your affirmations or write them or listen to them or however you choose to use them, and you start seeing the changes. Danielle, you're absolutely right. You know, the more you start noticing those bad things, the more bad things you see. And it is a law of attraction. It draws, you know, you get on this certain vibration and it draws other vibrations of this, and then you get more frustrated, you get more, and then the littler things piss you off, and then, you know, the next thing you know, it's over the toothpaste cap or some ridiculous things, you know. So, so you just you have to start focusing on the good. I know that's so cliche, focus on the good, but it's so cliche, but it's so true. You have to focus on what you want. Then you get on that vibration, and then more and more things start coming to you, and you start noticing more of the good things and the good tasting things and the pretty things or whatever. So, but there's something called equilibration that I've mentioned before, and it's basically taking any situation in your life, any emotion, attitude, feeling, experience, and asking yourself, you know, if you just think that it's the worst thing ever, asking yourself, what are the good things coming out of this? Because every situation, no matter how horrible, there are good things that come out of that. Sometimes they're hard to see. Sometimes you need some space between, you know, before you can actually go through this process. But if you have things, say, from your childhood or past experiences that are haunting you, this is a great way to actually go through and look at, especially hindsight, you can really see the good things that came out of some situations that at the time seemed completely unbearable. Some of the frustrations we run into in the beginning of our businesses, those are the things that, excuse me, build us up to where we can handle the stresses as our businesses get bigger. So all of these things have purpose. I'm talking too much. I'm shutting up now.
Oh no, you're not talking too much there, Catherine. That's great. That's terrific. Um, yeah, gosh, I had a thought real quick. I was going to hop out and say something. Say it was about attitudes. You know, Danielle, you're right. The attitudes, and someone mentioned earlier emotions, our programming. You know, directs our attitudes, and then that directs our feelings, and our feelings are actions, and then our actions can reinforce. You know, like Catherine said, you know, celebrate your little victories. Um, you know, I learned in college that our memory works in a way of it's sort of what we learn goes into a loop in our head and just keeps, the more it loops into this short-term memory, then the more easily it will then go into your long-term memory. But it's got to loop around in there for a while. And if you just learn one thing once and then forget about it, you're not going to, you're not going to actually incorporate that into your daily living, and it's not going to be in the wheelhouse, so to speak, for you to use when you react to things. So it's definitely important to keep the certain thoughts, especially thoughts that you know will counter your negative thoughts. Keep those positive thoughts in your head and keep thinking them over and over. it's kind of a training, and it gets it into your wheelhouse. And then when something comes up, you don't have the negative reaction, you have the positive reaction, because that's the angle at which you're going to have that perception of it. So definitely that's where the work is, and sometimes can be tough, you know, to do that consistently. But consistency, I've found, is really the foundation for success in really anything, not only just this, but just stay consistent with it and don't get discouraged. We'll have some emotional like whiplash. Sometimes it won't seem to work as quickly as you like, but it does take a little bit of time. But you work with it and celebrate and take action upon it. Even just that celebration of doing something, accomplishing some short step in the road to your success, even though it may not seem like a big deal, go ahead and celebrate that, and that action will help reinforce it and pull up that emotion behind it as well. Really be like, yes, I really did. I did a great job, and give yourself that pat on the back and really mean it, and take that seriously, and then remind yourself that you did accomplish that one thing, and so that next time it happens, next time something happens that you just react to, or next time you even have to think about maybe getting started on that project again, you remember that thought and feeling of yes, I accomplished something, and then instead of the dread of, oh, I have to get to work and figure this out again, or do have all this work in front of your head, so in front of you to do. So it does that, changes your attitude through the reprogramming, and using the celebration, using that action, and that feeling of accomplishment. I always say they can't bottle accomplishment. Accomplishment is something, that feeling of accomplishment, and you can't get that in a drink or in a cigarette or anything. So it's, and that is such a powerful, such a terrific feeling. And when you do accomplish something, you should take time to enjoy that and attach it to whatever task it was that you just did, so that next time it's a little bit easier. So that's all I had to say. I'll let somebody else jump out.
Good stuff, everybody. I was actually thinking, what everybody was saying, I was thinking keywords for me are integration, right, and anchoring. And I think, like you were saying, Jason, anchoring in that positive emotion and that positive feeling, or that positive reaction or response, a result, all of that helps you kind of reroute yourself in the more healthy mindset and talk, right, rather than that negative stuff. And when it comes to integration, because it's so easy to kind of fall off the wagon, right, and go back to your old patterns and let that negative talk come in, and those negative behaviors, and because they're safe, right? Because that's what we know. It might not be healthy for us, but it's what we know, so we think it's safe. So we go back to it. We revert back to it. Even when something new is, it's uncomfortable, it's positive for you, it's a good thing for you, but it's not safe yet until you integrate it. I really hope everybody gets this and drops, because that was such good points that you brought up, Jason. I so agree. It's so important to do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. In the pre-mastermind discussion, B.G. Jenkins mentioned a Dr. Caroline Leaf, and one of the things that she teaches is about the way that our body reacts to our thought processes. And so one of the things she said in here, she says, and she's referring to Dr. Caroline Leaf, she says she suggests that when trying to recognize that kind of attitude we are having with the thoughts, that we look at how it makes our body feel and our mind feel, because of the chemical reactions that have been sent out through the body, through the functions of different organs like the hypothalamus. So I know I'm mispronouncing that. That amygdala. Somebody else can say these words because I'm not saying them right. And the pituitary gland. But anyway, you know, one thing I wanted to mention about that is Dan shared a video also, or shared a YouTube channel for this doctor where she, you know, showed how the different things that we say react differently in our body, and it shows like a you know, the brain reaction, and how negative thoughts have this like just kind of dead like reaction, and then a positive thought has this lit up life like reaction in our brain. And you know, and this is important because when we start having those kind of negative feelings, you feel it in your body. You feel sick. You feel maybe an achiness in your stomach, or you feel like kind of lowering of your kind of of your emotional, like a depression kind of feeling and that kind of thing. And when you can start to recognize those things and then work on creating more positive thought processes, then you feel better, you feel uplifted, you feel happier, and that sort of thing, you know. And this week was a real big kind of a thing for me, because I was kind of smacked in the face with a reaction that I really didn't expect out of myself, you know, because I've been working on personal development for years now. And so, you know, I recently found out my daughter was pregnant, and she's been with this guy for, you know, a short period of time. And there was a conversation about her potentially moving to South Carolina to be near his family. And I instantly started having these hostile thoughts towards him and his family of them taking her away from me and this baby away. And so I started all these thoughts, and I'm just feeling more and more depressed. I'm feeling mad. My stomach's hurting. I'm feeling all these feelings. And it suddenly dawns on me that I'm focused on like the worst possible outcome versus what I could potentially, you know, have this, you know, be is just great relationships, you know. So when I recognized how it was affecting me, I realized, okay, I've got to change what I'm sitting here telling myself on how I'm talking to myself about this situation, because if I don't, I'm going to make myself feel miserable. I'm going to alienate my daughter. I'm going to alienate the boyfriend. I'm going to, you know, all these things are going to happen. I'm going to push her away because I'm being so controlling. And, you know, instead of having an expression of love towards the situation, I was getting upset about it and being fearful and all of those kinds of things. And so when I recognized that, I'm like, okay, I got to create some self-talk statements, which I did. I put them in the pre-mastermind discussion if you guys want to look at that. I'm not going to read them all off in here today, but it was a real slap in my own face to realize what I was doing. That was who was it that was talking about negativity? It was Christina. How you were talking about, you know, if you've had a lot of negative upbringing and you have this negativity in your life, even if you've worked on things for years and years, and then all of a sudden you're faced with a new situation, is that you have these automatic reactions from this pre-programming that has happened in your past, and that's what happened with me, you know. And so I don't know. I won't dominate the conversation. Somebody else jump out.
Honey, I have to jump out here because I have another grandma story. My daughter is going to be delivering my sixth grandbaby coming up now, new granddaughter coming probably in a couple of weeks. And I was very fortunate and blessed to be able to be here for the birth of her first child, and was anxiously this whole pregnancy have been. And keep in mind, I was a nurse for 20 years and have helped deliver hundreds of babies, and so I, not just as a mom and for her, you know, wanting to be there because she's my daughter and is my grandchild, but also from a safety aspect, like I have that nursing part of me that really wants to be there. And so this whole pregnancy I've been envisioning, you know, remembering Aiden's birth and envisioning being there for this one. And she just told me yesterday that they've decided that it's just going to be her and her husband for this birth. And I was just like, oh, you know, I was just like, oh no, you know, but immediately, thankfully, I, you know, kicked back in and said, well, you know, I was so blessed to be there for the first one, and I can totally understand, because I'm not the only grandma, there's other grandmas and stuff, so, you know, to have that many people in the room for such a personal experience, of course, you know, they want it to be just them, and this is their last child that they're going to birth, so So I understand you, Grandma. I got you. Now, at least we know how to change these things quickly, though. That's the good part.
You know, Samantha brought up a good word, and that's the word fear. And I really believe that that's a lot of times my reactions too. And I think most of us here on here, not all of us maybe, but a majority of us are parents. And so many times in our life, our reactions are out of fear, which have been developed into these attitudes, or Dan had mentioned familiar patterns. We fall into those familiar patterns without even knowing, and it's you know, it's that, am I going to respond to the situation, or am I reacting to the situation? And I learned a long time ago, and I'm not perfect at it, but I really work on it all the time to slow my roll, so to speak. And I tell my kids the same thing, slow your roll. And what that means is to slow down and look at how your thought patterns and everything are moving to the situation. And it goes back to my earlier thought, because when my kids were younger, I would pick something up and it would just fly across the room and go, and you know, get their attention, and it was just it was a reaction or a verbal thing that, you know, you get pissed off at your kids and boy, things will fly, you know, and you'll say things, and it's because of a fear usually that's attached to it. And a lot of times if we just stop, it's going to go, well, it just happened, can't change it, what am I going to do about it? And if we can become better and better at that, things turn around, and laws of attraction will actually work out in our favor no matter almost anything that's going on in our life. It's interesting how that energy changes. And so, you know, I'll wrap this real fast. My life's changed a lot because it started changing attitudes, and now I've attracted so many amazing things. My romantic relationship was almost over and ended, and I left it alone for a while. Now he chases me, and all kinds of great things are happening there. And, you know, I mean, it's just so many wonderful things that were like a mess for a while in my life. And with, you know, and so you'll replace and there'll be a new one, but they're also the lessons that teach us and help us to recognize. And if we're really working on ourselves, we come to a deeper understanding of who we are, and that's where the attitudes can get better in doing that. So let me quiet myself here.
Yeah, I'd like to say, pose a remark there on this. I'm going to say this because I'm going to have to hop off. I have my space. I got to go. My sister's in my house too. So Danielle, I understand it's not a child, but it's a sister. But what we have, you said a key word about lesson. When you start, you know, saying things and you putting it out with your words, you come in, you look back. This is teaching. You ask yourself a question: what is this teaching me? What do I need to learn in this? It's not about. Then you have to come back and you got to mellow out, and you got to get the attitude in check. And make a long story short, you can read my discussion there in the mastermind. When you're away from people for many years, and then all of a sudden you come back together, whether you're family or whatever, you still got these, like you said, personalities. But I am so I never thought I'd say this, but I'm thankful for everything that's happened in my life, because all it has done is just brought blessings after blessings that I couldn't even begin to name. Had no idea where they were coming from, but I'm happy. I have peace. But if somebody walk in here, they say, I don't know how you can have all that. Yeah, go through it, and it helps you. It'll help you to surrender, and you'll have a blessed life, just blessed all the way around. I'm blessed. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Donna, you just make me smile. Like, you're always just so positive and loving and supportive. Like, if more people could be like you, the world would be a better place, girl. You make me smile. What was I getting ready to say? I'm getting all emotional now. What was I getting ready to say? Oh, I was going to say, like, literally, when we are going through life, because this is going to be my little wrap up. When we are going through life, and I was thinking about what Danielle was saying about fear. One of my ahas this past week, I'll just share, because I think people can get value out of it. One of my ahas this past week, I was going back through an old discussion with my Pay Me What I'm Worth course that you've heard me talk about. And something that I realized, I always thought, I would always say, people just go through life with their head in the sand, buried with their head in the sand, buried with their head in the sand. What I recognized about myself was much of my adult life I've been going through with my head buried in the sand out of fear of facing a situation, or out of fear of a response of someone else's response to a situation, out of fear even that I couldn't handle something. So fear and faith, right, were two reasons that I was stunting my own growth. I was stunting my own success. I was stunting my own happiness. I was stunting my own prosperity. Now I'm sharing this with you guys because I think that it's important to recognize that maybe in yourself. You think you got it going on. You think you're facing things. You think you're dealing with things. You think you're healthy. I had a friend text me yesterday and said, my mindset is good. I don't have a problem with my spirit or my mindset. I just need to get my body back together. I just need to get healthy again. Baby girl, this was what I said to her. I said, baby girl, would you agree with that? You wouldn't have any problem staying committed to exercise and eating right if there wasn't some issue with your mindset and your self-value, right? So I just wanted to point this out to everybody today because it's very important. It's one of my ahas, and I don't know, now I feel even more equipped with dealing with all the things that life brings us. And that negative chatter isn't as hard. More and more, the more I recognize fear and faith, integration and anchoring. Those are my 4 key words for today's discussion. It's been a real good one. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump out. This morning, as I was writing my pre-mastermind discussion, I was just listening to a tape in the background. Dr. Bobby Summer, and How to Set and Achieve Goals. It's a pretty old program. But anyway, it was just what she was talking about just really worked into what I was writing about, because what she was talking about there, and this is a real old example, I'm sure all of you have heard it probably 1,000 times, but I hadn't heard it for a while. Sorry, I'm dealing with something that's popping up here. Anyway, what she was talking about is how baby elephants are trained, and when an elephant's a baby, they drive a real deep stake into the ground, put a great big chain around a baby elephant's leg, and then no matter how much it pulls and tugs, it can't get away. And you've heard the saying that an elephant never forgets. Well, when the elephant is a full-grown adult and weighs several thousand pounds or whatever an elephant weighs, and they can put just a little tiny rope around the elephant's leg, and it will stay there. And the elephants have actually been known to die in a fire and only have a little tiny rope around their leg, but they're stuck. They can't get away because in their mind they know they can't escape, because that was trained into their mind as a baby. And so much of the stuff, so many of the patterns that we fall back on are patterns that we developed as children. They were coping mechanisms. They were ideas. They were thoughts that we never chose. They were placed in our mind, just like you place a box of cereal in the shelf. You open up the cupboard, you put the box of cereal up there, and you close the cupboard, and there it stays until you take it out. And it's a choice that we make. We have to make the choice to dig down deep inside of our mind, dig up those thoughts that are not serving us, and take them out, examine them. And if they're not something that is serving us in our life today, if they're not a thought that we actually chose, that somebody else injected into our mind, then we have to take them out. Just like the baby elephant that grows into a full-size adult and would die in a fire, when it could very easily break the small string and run away and save its life. And it's like an insidious thing that just lies there until we make the choice, we make the decision, we dig it out, we examine it, and we decide whether it's a serving thought, whether we need to keep it, or whether we need to throw it in the trash and move it out of our lives. So, I just was so I hadn't heard this. I've heard this example so many times, and I hadn't even thought about that for such a long time. That baby elephant grows up and it's in a prison when it could very easily walk away from that prison. And we do the same thing with these thoughts that are in our minds. They're there, but we can take them out. We can examine them. We can choose to plant better thoughts and to flush the bad ones we don't want anymore, flush them down the toilet. So yeah, I'll turn over to somebody else for thoughts.
Wow, Dan. We were right at the top of the hour, guys. I think that's a good place to end for today. That was a very powerful reminder for all of us that something as small as our attitudes and what we believe can hold us back so significantly, just like the elephant. I mean, that's powerful. And when we realize that, when we realize the road we're taking ourselves down, and that we can change and make a different choice and change our attitudes about where we're going, then we can have completely different and amazing results in our lives. So, unless anybody else has something real quick they want to share before we wrap up, raise your hand if you want to jump out. Any final thoughts?
I'd like to share just one little thing. I made a comment in the group chat that I realized something today just going through this hangout with that I tend to have a recurring thing for me that's part of my bad thoughts or whatever that's ingrained, let's put it that way. That deals with money and how I deal with when I have a lot of money and when I have little money, and when I'm trying to pay my bills and stuff. I tend to do the same recurring thing when my money's not necessarily enough for what I want to do. And it really became really prevalent today. Some thought processes I've had this week, how this really helped me put that into perspective, to where now I can start working on changing that thought process to go back to like what Donna and Catherine were talking about in the law of attraction, to attracting what I want and repelling all the negative things, and especially around some money aspects. So that was the little bit that I really gained out of this week.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Okay, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us this week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. We hope you got some value from this. I know that I did. And if you like this video, be sure and jump over to our YouTube channel. When you click on the title for this video on the event page, it'll take you to our YouTube channel where you can click like on the video, you can share the video, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then, of course, follow us on Google+. Share this event page with anybody who thinks it will be helpful to learn about this stuff. And with that, have a great day, an awesome and amazing weekend, and we will see you next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.